Wow, I think we've saved almost the best for last. Today, I want to welcome to our meeting Vice President of Rotary International, Yinka Babalola, who you all remember from Guadeloupe last year. I want to welcome today past Rotary International President Barry Racine, who's been a tremendous resource and support to us throughout the entire joint PETS and assembly. I want to welcome today also Director of Rotary International, Stephanie Urchik, who has been a source of great inspiration to all of us directors-elect during this year, and I'll introduce her a little later. Our past District Governor, David Edwards, who is the incoming chair of the Rotary International Membership Committee. I've seen online as well, past District Governor Wadi Soma, past District Governor Felix Stubbs from 7020, Paresh Rajamdani from 7020, Leslie Harry Paul. I've seen online as well Sheila Bethel, who is or was, I'm not sure if she still is, our PI chair for our zone. I've seen Audley Knight, Regional Membership Officer. Sonia Aline, who is our District Governor-elect nominee. My buddy Charles, I hope he's got to his office already, but Charles, District Governor-elect Charles Seeley from Nassau. And I think that's about everybody that I saw, but there may well be more. But Rotarians, leaders, Rotaractors, we have people from 7020, even though their sessions have officially ended. They want to be here with us. They've enjoyed these sessions so much. I welcome you to this penultimate session of PETS. I'm not even going to mention the number, but it is the penultimate session of PETS and Assembly. And without further ado then, Nigel, I'll hand back to you for you to continue with Barry to introduce our golden nugget. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG Lyle, for those wonderful words. I would now like to invite us, RI President Barry, to introduce our golden nugget.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Governor-elect Lyle. Again, so great to be with you. We've had a lot of sessions over, it seems like about 6 months, but it's probably only one or two. But it's been fantastic, and I just so enjoyed the fellowship. But my job isn't to speak, my job is to introduce. So it truly is my honor today to introduce a very special Rotarian. Yinka Babalola is an accomplished health, safety, and environment practitioner with significant experience in upstream oil and gas surface operations, with 23 years with Shell. But you know, what he's been extremely good at is energizing the Rotarians on the continent of Africa. They all look to him as their leader, as their guide, and they all have so much respect for him. When he tells them, you got to grow in membership, they grow in membership. He's currently a director of Rotary International and voted to be the vice president of Rotary International. And while his term is almost up, he'll always be remembered as one of our outstanding directors. But you know, what I truly admire about Yinka is the fact that he is also a past Rotaractor and instrumental in growing Rotaract, not only in Africa, but in other parts of the world, because he understands Rotaract, he understands the importance of our young professionals being part of this organization. So it is with a great, great pride that I'm able to introduce to you, and I ask you to please give a very warm Caribbean welcome to the Vice President of Rotary International, Yinka Babalola.
Well, thank you very much, Barry, for that very warm introduction. You know, this morning, conscious of the fact that I'll be visiting the Bahamas, you know, without having to buy a ticket, I asked myself, what would the weather be like And what will typical people, I mean, ordinary people in Bahamas who putting on a day like this? And my mind told me to be something colorful. So you know I don't have shortage of colorful things. So I went looking for something that is multicolor to be able to reflect the mood of the Caribbean as it is. So good afternoon or good morning to you, my dear friends and my family of Rotary and our distinguished guests. I'd like to say a big thank you to our Rotarians. All over the world, anytime I'm doing this, I start from them for their dedication for keeping the work of our organization going. I also like to congratulate our incoming leaders for the confidence they have received from their clubs and from their districts to lead them this year. I want to thank the leadership past and current of districts 7020 and 7030 for your continued dedication to the work of Rotary, in particular the PDGs, for allowing our current and future leaders to stand on your shoulders so that they could see much further than they would ordinarily have seen. To DTE Nigel, and of course to my friend and brother, past Rotary International President Barry Racing, I see, I call Barry my friend and brother because when Barry visited Ghana, several times he saw people in Ghana that he thought looked like people he knew at home. And I told him that means he needs to have some more visits. So Barry is my brother from another part of the world. So thank you, Barry, for your leadership and for your hard work and dedication in getting us ready and prepared for the next Rotary year. Of course, to DGE, Leslie and Charles, the only thing I can say to you is good luck. It's too late, you can't do anything now, so it's just to wish you good luck. So if I can share my slide, I hope I have the authority to do so. I just have a few slides I want to share with you. Okay, I can do so. My conversation today is about something I think as Rotarians we take for granted. You see, we believe that Rotarians are leaders. They are leaders in their businesses, they are leaders in everything they do. They are head of corporations, they are leaders in their own right, professionals. And so what do we assume? We think, well, they are leaders, they lead, they know what to do. So you just expect them to step forward and lead. But that is fallacy. And my conversation today is to share with you my thoughts that leaders actually love to be led. And you see, because in their own organization, where they lead, they know what they have to provide to the organizations that they lead. So when they come to Rotary and you are their leader, they have expectations also that as your follower, they have certain expectations of what you should do to lead them. And so when you as a club or district leader doesn't do that, they lose interest and they may actually leave you behind. So let us share that thought a little bit. You see, I know I can see Stephanie in the room, and good evening or good morning, Stephanie. And Stephanie may be talking about these priorities of ours. But my hang on this is that all of this will not happen if we don't have that leadership that we're talking about. And that leadership will deliver if and only if the leaders that we have in the organization are properly led. Let me share with you some of the characteristics of some of the great leaders. For example, particularly with respect to our own organization. You see, these leaders are quite secure. You know, they're in their own space. They know what to do. So they are secure. You see, they know their own capabilities, and invariably they have nothing to prove. So they waste no time or words trying to impress anybody. As a result, they can follow in quiet confidence. See, great leaders manage their own margins. They use the times when they are not in key leadership to recharge their own leadership batteries. Great leaders save their influence for high impact opportunities. And please take note of these things. Because they are selective, they are ready to act when the stakes are high, and they can make the great difference in the outcome. But you see, the stakes need to be high. So if you are leading them and you are subjecting them to mediocre things, of course, you lose them. Great leaders respect other leaders. You see, great leaders dream of a world filled with more leaders. They want a line of leaders ready and prepared to do what is needed. So they respect anyone who leads in large-scale context or in small. Anyone who cares about leadership and tries to lead for good outcomes is considered a brother or a sister by those who lead. Great leaders love to learn from other leaders because they know they can learn from anyone. And you know, at a minimum, they know that following another leader will reinforce their own convictions to do things differently. And you know, great leaders actually love following. How ironic that so many people focus on leadership without giving equal attention to following. Surprisingly, great leaders extol the value of following and demonstrate this commitment in the manner they respond to other leaders. So then, if you are going to be leading leaders, what should you be watching out for? I want to share with you this leadership culture that comes from the Center for Cultural Leadership. It's ccl.org. You can go ahead and find it. And it says there are 3 types of leadership culture, as you can see on the screen: dependent, independent, and interdependent. And these are their characteristics and the culture, how they wish to be led. And you see, none of this is actually bad. The point is, it's just individual leadership culture and styles. So if you are going to manage leaders, which is what you are going to have in your Rotary clubs, then you then need to understand what all of this means, understand the people you are leading and which characteristic or which culture would they prefer. How then do you lead leaders? Very simple. Lead leaders the way they like to be led. Not the way you want, the way they like to be led. And that is where the challenge is for us, for you, and for us as leaders of organizations like Rotary. Let me share this with you from the same Center for Cultural Leadership. It says, when you are dealing with this group of leaders, the interdependent, the independent, and the dependent, that when it comes to setting direction, how should you engage with them? So for the interdependent, you can see shared exploration, emergence of new perspective. They want to be discussed with. They want to be part of evaluating, determining what that new direction will be. If you have a leader like that and you treat differently, they will simply walk away. The independent, they like the discussion. They want that mutual influence. They want to negotiate. And of course, the dependent are just willing to comply. You tell them what to do, they're happy, they just get it done for you. If they can do something else and you don't call them, they leave you alone. So you need to figure out who are the people that you are leading. So, if you are going to be able to deliver results, you need to know your leaders. You need to get to know them. You need to know their capabilities, their passion, and their experience. You need to know which culture of leadership they prefer and to deploy it to them. Of course, you need to bestow to your leaders, differentiate, adapt your style depending on how best to engage them the most. And of course, even in Rotary, one of the elements of effective club is to grow leaders beyond the club level. You need to grow your leaders. You need to create a culture of movement. You see? In fact, you need to help people move from being dependent to independent to interdependent, because that is the only way you can create sustainability beyond yourself and beyond your term of leadership. So it's not just about my year, my year, my year. If you're going to lead this organization, you also help us build the leaders and get people around the vision. My message to those that may be in the room, who are leaders in their own right, but who may not have direct positions of leadership. My appeal is, please let your leaders know how you like to be led. And as a closing, I like to use this word. If you are leading and nobody is following, you are simply taking a walk. You are having a stroll. Thank you very much, my dear friends, for allowing me this short moment with you at this event.
Thank you very much, VP Yinka, for that inspirational golden nugget. My takeaway from it is leaders love to be led, and please don't take a walk by yourself. So thank you very much. I would like to invite District Governor-elect to introduce our guest speaker today. Thank you very much.
Hi, yeah, I was just trying to get unmuted there. All right, I am unmuted. Okay. Thanks, Nigel. Today, we are very fortunate to have with us RI Director Stephanie Urchik. She is a Rotary International Director 2019 to 21, and she represents zones 33 and 34. Stephanie is from the Rotary Club of McMurray, Pennsylvania, in District 7330. Stephanie is a partner and Chief Operating Officer of Doctors at Work, LLC, a consulting and training company. Stephanie also writes a community service column for a local magazine serving the Canonsboro, Pennsylvania area. She's been named Rotarian of the Year by both her Rotary District and her Rotary Club, and has received the Distinguished Service Award from Rotary Foundation. In September 2016, Stephanie appeared in the publication Women in Business that highlighted women from 23 counties in the Pennsylvania area who are making a difference. Stephanie has been a Rotarian since 1991 and has served Rotary as not only in her club, but as Rotary Foundation trustee, chair of the Foundation Centennial Celebration Committee and the Rotary Strategic Planning Committee, member of the Atlanta RI Convention Committee, District Governor, Regional Foundation Coordinator, International Training Leader, President's Representative, District Delegate to 2 councils on legislation, and as a member of various RI committees and in various club and district foundation roles. She's a major donor and a member of the Bequest Society of the Rotary Foundation. Stephanie has participated in a variety of international service projects, including national immunization days for polio in India and Nigeria, and the building of an elementary school in Vietnam and water filtration installation in the Dominican Republic, and mentoring new Rotarians in the Ukraine. My fellow Rotarians, Director Stephanie is all that and more, I can assure you. She has been a tower of strength, as I mentioned earlier, to all of us governors-elect, and I'm sure Charles will jump in and support that in his closing remarks. But Stephanie is the person behind the new strategic initiative as far as we're concerned. There is no better person to address you today on strategic planning. I give you RI Director Stephanie Urchik.
Well, thank you so much, Director or Governor-elect. I'm already promoting you. You're doing such a good job. Good morning, everybody. Bonjour. I'm so excited to be with you. I love this technology. You know, yesterday, I started my day with the Zoom meeting in Chicago. Then I Zoomed to Germany, where I had a conversation with President-elect Holger. Then I went to England, Then I came back to Pennsylvania for my own Rotary Club meeting, and I ended up in 2 different places in Virginia. And you know what? I never left my kitchen table. I think it's amazing that we get to connect. And I'll talk more about that in just a minute. So I appreciate the invitation to be with you today because your governor-elects have invited me to speak to you about strategic planning, specifically Rotary strategic plan. Okay, I get it. As soon as I say those words, I see the eyes rolling and I see people glazing over. Some of you are doing that, but listen, I promise, what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is demystify the strategic plan and help you understand what it means at your club level. All right, the strategic plan is really a guide for moving us into the future. So I want to talk about 3 things this morning. I want to talk about why we even developed a strategic plan like this one. I want to talk about how we developed that strategic plan. And then I want to talk about what it is. Every time I say that, you know, there's a commercial in the United States that features a comedian by the name of Kevin Hart. And in the commercial, he's at a supermarket and it's for some credit card. And he asks the cashier, he has this big thing on the belt, and he says, "Would you please double bag that? And also, would you tell me what it is?" So Rotary strategic plan is a big thing. And it's a thing that's meant to guide us into a promising future. So I want to talk certainly a little bit with you about what it is and how it brought us to an action plan. So let me start with why. Why do we need this? Why did we even do this? Well, I have been in Rotary, as you heard, almost for 30 years. And for 20 of those 30 years, we have said the same thing. We have 1.2 million members. We have 1.2 million members. We have 1.2 million members. And we never really moved the organization forward. We never really grew Rotary in a substantial way. So it became clear that because of where we were and because of changes that we have in technology, in demographics, in society, that we really needed to grab hold of a plan that was going to push us forward and make us not just survive, but thrive. So that's why we decided to do this. So how it came about, 5 or 6 years ago, you know that Rotary, when we say Rotary, we know what it means. It's one to the world. Rotary is an organization, but internally, Rotary, of course, has 2 parts. It has Rotary International, which is the administrative part of what we do. And then we have the Rotary Foundation, which is the part that allows us to do the magic of Rotary. So it was decided that a joint committee would be formed. That means that half of the people appointed were appointed by Rotary International, and half were appointed by the Rotary Foundation. And then together they would work to help create a plan to move us forward. And I was chosen to chair that. And past President Barry, who's on the call, was also part of these early meetings that we had. So what did we do? How did we get started? Well, very much like what Vice President Yinka said, we decided that it would be an interdependent activity. What that means is we knew from the start that we were not the ones that had to create our vision statement or our strategic plan. It had to come from the grassroots. So it came from all of us. So how we did that, we began with something called our triennial survey. You know, in our constitutional documents, we are required every 3 years to reach out to Rotarians, just like all of us, and say, how are we doing? What should we be doing? What should we stop doing? What does our future look like? So that's exactly what we did. And some of you may have gotten that survey in your email. You may remember it because it was the first time a survey had pictures. We included pictures of people and we asked Rotarians, non-Rotarians, Rotaractors, alumni, anybody who we could reach to look at that survey, answer those questions, look at those pictures, and tell us who looked like a Rotarian. And oh my goodness, it was so interesting, because the legacy Rotarians, people who were my age, picked a very different set of people than younger professionals picked or Rotaractors picked. So we took all of that information, all of the information from the surveys, and then we decided we needed to do something further. So we did focus group study. We were working with a consultant firm out of New York City, and they had offices all over the world. So we were able to reach out a second time and talk to Rotarians, non-Rotarians, Rylarians, Interactors, anybody that we could find who had some interest in the future of Rotary, and ask similar questions. We took all of that data again. So now we looked at all the information we had. We had reached over 1 million people. All right, so it wasn't the 8 of us sitting around the table, or the president of Rotary, or the chairman of the trustee board. It was all of us. It was 1 million people around the world who said, take a look at these things. This is what matters. So we looked at that information and we found these big phrases that seemed to make sense, and we pulled them out and put them together, and they became our vision statement. But before we released it, we again tested it around the world to make sure that it had resonance in every culture and every language. And I'm glad we did that, because when we sent it to Asia, oh my goodness, they came back and they said, no, 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 this phrase will not work. The original phrase had a statement about Rotarians tackle the impossible. And the Japanese Rotarians especially said, nobody can do the impossible. So that's how it morphed into create lasting change. So the vision statement that you saw Vice President Yinka put up, and that you can see behind me, and I'm sure you have seen, was released to the world. And together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change around the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. Was well received, and people have embraced it. The important part of that statement from my perspective is that last piece, in ourselves. You know, we're an organization that's 115 years old, but for the longest time, we didn't acknowledge that being a Rotarian changes us too. You know, I have learned more from Rotary service than I ever learned in a classroom. I am a much different person today because of Rotary service than I was 30 years ago. And I think all of us can say that same thing. So that vision statement acknowledges that Rotary not only changes the people we touch with our service, but it changes us. So that was step one. Step two was then to go back to all of the data and start to look for priorities and objectives that were actionable items that Rotarians and the corporate organization could take to move us forward. And by doing that, we came up with the 4 priorities of the strategic plan. And you saw them on the screen with Yinka, but I want to talk about them. So the first one is increase our impact. You know, we are very good at doing service, but we have not been very good at measuring impact. We know how to count things. We know input and output, and then there's outcome, and then there's impact. We need to get all the way over to that final area and talk more deeply about the impact we have. Let me give you an example. When President Ian Risley was in office, what did he ask us to do? He asked us to go out and plant trees. And that's what we did. We went out and planted trees, a tree for every member in our club and then some. And we counted all those trees and we sent that number to Rotary International. End of story. We didn't take it far enough. We never really talked about the impact planting all those trees had on the environment? Did it change the CO2 level? Did it do something in terms of stopping soil erosion? We didn't take it far enough. Let me give you another example of where we have been good at measuring impact, and that's with our efforts with polio eradication. From the very beginning, we have been able to say that when polio is eradicated, there will be 11 million children a year who don't have to have a crippling disease, and there will be $85 billion that will be saved in healthcare costs because people won't need that. We were able to say early the impact, and that's one of the reasons the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation looked at Rotary and said, we need to become part of this effort, and they became a partner in our polio eradication efforts. So at the corporate level, as well as at our club levels, we need to start thinking about how do we measure the impact of our service. What impact does it have, so that we can report that if we want to attract more members, if we want to attract more donors, if we want to attract more partners. Impact is what people look at. So we really need to get better at that. So that's about increasing our impact is about doing that, learning how to get better at measuring what we do and what impact it has on people. The second priority is expand our reach. You know, the Council on Legislation in 2016 opened the door for us with allowing new kinds of club models. There are lots of people who love legacy clubs. I'm in one. I love my legacy club. When I'm in town, I go every week. Now that I'm home, I'm on my Zoom meeting every week. I love my legacy club. But there are people who, for whatever reason, may not feel the same about going to a meeting at noontime. Maybe they have a job that doesn't allow them to get away in the middle of the day. Maybe they are a young professional starting a career and they look at the dues and think, holy smokes, that's a lot of money to pay for a meal. So there are lots of people who are attracted to serve, but may want to look at a different model. So this is a priority that's encouraging us to do that, to look at how we are packaging the magic of Rotary and allowing people to come in a way that makes sense for them. At the corporate level, you may have heard that Rotary is doing a pilot project called the non-club participant model. It used to be called global membership, but for some reason they went to non-club participant model. So what they're going to do is test this in the United States in an area outside of Chicago and in an area around Houston, Texas. And it's a model that will allow people to become engaged in Rotary without joining any club. So they're going to test it and see, does that make sense? Of course, it will be digital. Will it make sense? How will they serve? How do we monetize it? Will the values, the core values of Rotary be able to happen in that environment? So we're going to test that model to see if it works. In the meantime, you know that we have lots of other options with passport clubs and e-clubs and cause-based clubs. Some of you may have heard that just recently, the very first Veterans Club in the Rotary world was chartered in Minnesota. There's now a human trafficking club out of that same area. So we have opportunities to look for ways to bring people together. I was on a call Wednesday, and we were talking about the fact that in our communities, there are people that get together around a certain cause or activity who aren't Rotarians. Why don't we introduce the concept of service? In my community, that's a group of people who get together here locally for wine tasting. So why don't I go and support that and say, look, we're getting together every other week anyhow. why don't we think about a wine tasting club that also does service? So we have some opportunities to expand our reach. You know, one of the beauties of what we're doing on our Zoom meetings is the fact that it's attracted some people who had fallen away from us. I've been on many calls, and people, governors and presidents have said to me, you know, some of our former members have come onto the Zoom call to see what we're doing. And there are some new members or prospective members who have come on the call. Think about it. What an easy way to try Rotary. We don't have to drive anywhere. We don't have to spend any money. And so it's a really easy way to get involved with Rotary. So I would encourage you to think about how to expand your reach as you're looking at your future. The third one is my favorite. It talks about the engagement, enhancing participant engagement. This not only means engagement of our members, it means engagements of people who benefit from Rotary. But when we talk about our own members, you know, people come into our clubs for a lot of different reasons. Some come in because they want fellowship. Some come in because they want to serve. Some people are looking for networking because they know we're a community of business professionals. Some want professional development. They want to learn how to lead, or they want to learn some other business skill. So we need to get better at listening to what our members want and making sure that we're delivering. We're giving that return on investment. Because if people come into our clubs and they don't get what they're looking for, you're business people, you know what happens. They vote with their feet. They walk out the door. Sometimes we can find out why when we do exit interviews, but sometimes we can't. Because if the reason is somewhat negative, they're not going to tell us. But generally they'll say, well, my work hours increased, or my children need me, or whatever, but they're not going to say, I left the club because I didn't like the club meetings because the club meeting stinks. They're not going to say that to us. And they don't tell us that because they're nice people. That's why we invited them into Rotary in the first place. So we need to really think about developing a participant-centered approach to how we roll out Rotary and how we engage people in our clubs and get them to serve, and the same for the people who are benefiting from our service. And the final one is increase our ability to adapt. Oh my goodness, we're in overdrive. Think about this. 3 months ago, the way that we did Rotary was ripped from us. We had no choice but to get innovative and creative, and we did it. And I am so proud to be a Rotarian. I am so proud of everybody around the world who has embraced technology and ways to meet, and those who haven't have done other things like phone calls, calling people, phone trees. It's fabulous. We're doing what the world wants. The world is craving connection, and we're doing it. The other thing that I'm so proud of is that we haven't lost sight of service. I hear every day from clubs who tell me that they're doing food drives, or they're shipping medical supplies, or they're buying masks, or they're doing one thing or another. The fact that we had so many clubs apply for disaster response to COVID grants from the Rotary Foundation is testament that Rotarians want to serve and Rotarians want to make the world a better place. This priority also asked us to look at our club structures and to make sure that we are in alignment with our mission. You know, when I was chairing the Strategic Planning Committee, and past President Barry may remember this, we had a fellow on the committee from Ghana, and he said, you know, between where I am as a club member and the presidency of Rotary, there are 11 different steps. I'll never be president of Rotary. I'll never live that long. I can't get through all those levels. So what we had become is an organization that meant that if you had the depth of service, if you were in the positions long enough and were a Rotarian long enough, then you moved into leadership. And what we really should look at is skill set. What are the skills that we need in our leaders? And make some opportunity for people with those skills and knowledge to rise to the top. So those are the 4 priorities that became part of our corporate plan, and now it's moving into an action plan. But for this plan to go anywhere, for any of Rotary to move forward, we need you, presidents-elect, to take this message to your club and help translate these priorities so they make sense. So I'm gonna give you an example of how to do that right now. So everybody who's on the call, if your birthday falls in January, February, or March, okay? January, February, and March birthdays. I want you to look at your own club and think about increasing our impact. And just jot down wherever you are, at your desk, on your kitchen table, wherever, jot down, how will your club address increasing our impact? What does that mean for your club at your level? Those of you who have a birthday in April, May, or June, I want you to look at expand our reach. So again, April, May, or June birthdays, look at expand our reach. How will that work in our club? If we want to grow and diversify our membership and create new channels into Rotary, what kinds of things will that mean for us? And if your birthday is in July, August, or September, you'll look at enhancing participant engagement. Take a look at your own club and what can you do to support and better engage your members? What will you do to offer new opportunities for professional and personal development? Think about your club. That's July, August, and September. And those of you who have birthdays in the last part of the year, the last quarter, October, November, and December, you take a look at increase our ability to adapt. How will your club build a culture of innovation and a willingness to take risks? Maybe you've done some of that already. And how will you determine how to streamline your structure? And how will you foster more diversity in decision making? Okay, so all of you have some time to do that. And I'm going to ask you, I'm not sure who's monitoring the chat pane. Is that you, Governor-elect Lyle, or someone else? If you have an idea from one of those, let's hear from you. Raise your hand, or you can post it in the chat. So let's go back to the first one, increasing our impact. Who has something they'd like to share about how that's going to work at your club? How will your club deal with increasing impact and focusing its programs and offerings? Anybody want to offer any ideas, insights? I can't see everybody, so whoever's monitoring the screens, whoever has a hand up, please share your idea. I see a couple coming through in the chat panes. Would anybody like to speak out loud and share your idea? So we have from Robin, who says one of the ways that they'll increase impact in her club is to look for more community projects, do more assessment of the community to find areas where they can participate in. Great. Are there other ideas? Another one from Giselle said that her club started discussions on reviewing and evaluating current projects to allow them to be sure that they're delivering what people need. Good. So they're looking at focus. You know, that's another thing that we know about Rotary. We're so good at adding things, but we're never really good at taking them away. So narrowing our focus is really, really important. And Gina says, look at projects already conducted and measure the impact that's been made and report that back to club members. That's a great idea. So the club members know what effort they put out, what was the impact of that. All right, let's move on to the second one, expand our reach. So those of you who have those April, May, and June birthdays, what ideas can you share about your club? Translate that for your club. How will your club grow and diversify membership and participation? You can post it to the chat pane or you can raise your hand. Either way. How will you increase Rotary's openness and its appeal? Some ideas about expanding our reach. Anybody like to share? Okay, we heard, here's one from, it looks like Alana, research who our members really are. You know, find out about them, find out, you know, their motivation for their club and what they're coming to the club for. And once those are defined, collaborate with a local university to discuss what Rotaract does and define that. Sit down with partners and donors and talk about the importance of the work we're doing. Gina also says invite guests from Toastmasters. I failed to, Gina, thank you for prompting me. I failed to mention that, you know, we talked about professional development. Rotary has partnered, Rotary International has partnered with Toastmasters International to create a co-branded product. And that's going to be released sometime this summer. And that will go out to all Rotaractors and all Rotarians. And that's especially important for those people who are saying, we're involved in Rotary because we want professional development. So those people will learn how to speak more eloquently and how to lead effectively. So thank you, Gina, for reminding me about that. Lots of different ideas in the chat pane, so I hope you're following along. Let's look at the third one, enhancing participant engagement. What's your club doing or will it do to support ways to better engage your members? Some of the comments already have suggested that, getting to know them, asking more questions about them, finding out their motivations for joining. So talk about, from your perspective, what can your club do? Here's one from, looks like Natalie. Once a year, we organize a family day with guests. And the last time they did that, they had more than 130 people there, and it gave them an opportunity to talk to more non-Rotarians. Ask members what their expectations are and if they are being met. Exactly. You know, I go to clubs sometimes, and when they're inducting new members, there'll be a person who is a bank manager, and right away the club will say, great, you'll be our treasurer. Wait a minute, maybe that person doesn't want to be the treasurer. Maybe they work with numbers all day and they would rather do something else. So it's easier to ask that person, what would you like to do in our club? So let's look at the last one, increasing our ability to adapt. What's your club doing, or what can it do to build a culture of innovation? More virtual meetings, even after the coronavirus pandemic. That's coming from Trudy. And Trudy says it's appealing and it saves time and cost. Claude says conference with leaders in our community. You know, the fact that technology allows us to connect with people around the world, it also allows us to connect with great people in our community. So it can change the culture of our speakers at our meetings. Another one says, look at new and different projects and how we can do them in light of COVID and the pandemic. So being creative and innovative about how to produce service. Here's a simple one. Speak to our younger members. You know, there's something about younger members that I always like to highlight, and that's reverse mentoring. You know, when young professionals come into our clubs, they generally say, we love being here because you all know so many things that we can learn from. But guess what? Young people know things that we can learn from. So I spoke to a club recently in my area, and the best description I could give you is that they were octogenarians. They were all 80 years old or more. And so there I am talking about, you know, diversifying membership and inviting new members. And they finally said, Stephanie, look at us. We're 80 years old. Who's going to come into our club? What young professional wants to come here? So I had to think about it for a minute. And I said, the truth is, if you look around your community, there are young professionals who know things that you could benefit from. So sure enough, they found a young professional who was a photographer. They found a young professional who was in cybersecurity, and another one who did something with technology. So the young man who was a photographer came to the meeting, and he showed all of those members how to take their device, no matter what it was, iPhone or Android, and take better pictures. And oh my gosh, they were so astounded. They were, oh, that's fabulous, because I can send these pictures to my grandchildren and my kids. And so he felt valued because he made a contribution. They loved his contribution. As a result, that photographer talked to those other young professionals, the other two, and the three of them have decided to become members of that club. So reverse mentoring can sometimes bring you very, very good results in terms of growing Rotary. All right, there's been a lot of activity on the chat pane, so I hope you're paying attention to it. I just want to leave you with this thought that we are in a time when we have an opportunity to learn lessons from what's happened to our Rotary. As I mentioned earlier, we had to really shift, we had to pivot, and we have figured out how to connect, and we have figured out how to serve. So I hope those lessons won't be lost. So I thank you so much for your attention this morning, and I will open myself up for any questions about strategic planning or anything else that you have on your mind. If there are any questions, please let one of the co-hosts know or post them in the chat pane. Thank you.
All right, Director Stephanie, there's a question here.
Yes.
You spoke about legacy clubs. Are you indicating that legacy clubs should change their model?
No. Legacy clubs will never go away. Legacy clubs are what brought us to the table. I'm just suggesting that not everyone will be attracted to that model. So we need to make sure that we have other models that will work for those people. But no, legacy clubs will not go away. Oh no, I can't imagine that. That's what my club is, and I love my club.
Okay, there's another question here. Are you suggesting that all Rotary clubs adopt the RI model for developing their strat plans?
The strategic plan is an action plan. So my suggestion to you as president-elect is to take the plan, the corporate plan, and use it as an umbrella for discussion. Do something very much like I just did with you. Ask your members for input about these directions and these priorities, and what does that mean for your club?
The other question here that I have is, what is the suitable time frame for a strat plan? 1, 2, 3 years or more?
Well, the strategic plans that I'm most familiar with are generally developed with a 5-year timeline. But that doesn't mean you have to hold to that. But generally it's a 5-year timeline.
Okay, and the next one comes from Liz, who says, executing and monitoring a strategic plan is always an issue with some clubs. How can clubs ensure that this is done?
Well, to demystify it, much like I've tried to do with you today, because the words themselves, strategic planning, I mean, makes people's minds go to, you know, some odd, awkward, bureaucratic thing, but it really is just, it's just a guide, all right? It's like a lighthouse that, you know, is out there with a beam of light, and if you can help people understand that it's a guide, and that the guide allows you then to set objectives and priorities to move forward, I think you'll have better acceptance of it, and get your club members involved in the actual design and execution, because when people have ownership, they pay a little bit more attention to it.
Okay. Gina had a question. She said, wouldn't the wine tasting club, the veteran clubs, etc., not be categorized as Rotary action groups instead of clubs?
No, because they're forming with the same attitude as a Rotary club. So they have officers, they have a vision, they have meetings, they have service projects. So they are beyond the action, Rotary action groups. Anything else?
I had a question.
Sure.
In terms of the younger members, I mean, we've all heard about the Elevate Rotaract.
Yes.
Have you been seeing an increase in young clubs forming with only young members, and would it be something that should be encouraged more?
From where I sit, the majority of that activity I've seen has been in satellite clubs, where clubs who are already formed have reached out to people in the community, and they tend to be younger professionals who, for whatever reason, prefer a different format, meeting format, so they have become satellite members and do Rotary in a different model. That's been my experience, and there could be others.
All right, Director, thank you so much for your time this morning. I would like to, I can't see any more questions. It has been a wonderful morning, but I will ask District Governor-elect Charles to please move a vote of thanks and some closing remarks.
Sure. Thank you so much, Nigel. A special thank you to all who came on this morning and I'm not going to reiterate what Lyle would have said, but absolutely, this was a dynamic morning that you did not want to miss. Great, great presentations. I was really encouraged early in the session with the discussion on leadership, which becomes very essential, especially for those of you who are on the call, as you consider how are you going to take on the mantle for your clubs this year. And we got some truly golden nuggets, and caused us to think and to consider, you know, the style of leadership that is going to be required for our club to help those leaders within our clubs to exercise, one, their energies, excitement, and skill set, that they will band together in an interdependent way to do some great things. And of course, we had Stephanie, and Lyle and I get to enjoy the nuggets from Stephanie constantly as we have our meetings at the zone level. So we're well aware of a breadth of knowledge. As presented to you in earlier presentations, we had adopted, those of us, the district governor-elects in the zone, we had adopted the strategic focus as set out to help us in coming up with suggestions for our clubs. We believe it's actually very, very good for you as club members to use that as a guide. So in that synchronicity, we can all do some great things. And on each of those elements, those 4 elements, we can really see it liven up when all of you identify the things you're going to do in those areas. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for one, educating us, clarifying, because that's always good to be able to use examples, because when you hear the word strategic, it sounds like a lot of work. It sounds like homework almost. But I think you made it easy for us this morning. You made us understand the elements. And I think the club members or the leaders who are on the call can walk away invigorated and excited to go and do some great things. So it's an actual guide that's going to help us to transform our clubs, but more importantly, enhance and change our districts to be even better. So thank you so much for our presenters. Thank you for those moderator, Nigel, once again. I'm always upset with Nigel because he always has a beautiful painting behind him. And I'm just hoping that he remembers me in some way in a gifted session to be able to gift me one of those photos, those prints. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming on your beautiful Saturday morning. I wish you all the best. Thank you again, District Governor-elect Lyle, for allowing District 7020 to participate within the remaining of your sessions. And we look forward to the great things we will do together. Once again, good morning all.
Thank you, DG Charles. We will talk offline about the paintings behind me. I have some ideas that we can use, but I just want to encourage everyone on the call to please go to the survey. It's listed in the chat box. We do want feedback from you, whether you're in 70-20 or 70-30, it doesn't matter. Give us your feedback. It's important to us on how we move forward, and I will share the results with both districts so we know where we're going. Thanks to everyone in the background once again. We have Sean Paddy, who does this phenomenal job in the background, our translators, Natalie, Vicky, and Hervé, and certainly to my backup in regards to the questions, both Liz and Abe. And we want your remarks on the survey, so please have that and fill it out and send back to us. And we continue next week, Tuesday, to our ultimate, I won't call the number, as DGE Lyle said, our ultimate session with the mass or the invisible man called Sean Paddy, who will deal with PI. So thanks again, everybody, for coming on this morning, and I wish you the best of luck in your year. Thank you.